Men, it's time to face the truth. Women are not what they used to be. The world has changed, and so have they. The quiet, compliant version of femininity that men once expected is gone. Today's woman has standards, ambition, and boundaries. If you're still living by outdated rules of love, respect, or attraction, you're already behind. This isn't about blaming women, it's about waking you up to the new reality. For generations, women were conditioned to believe that their value came from how well they could serve others, how nurturing they could be, how much they could sacrifice, and how quietly they could tolerate. Their sense of worth was tied to approval, from family, from society, and most of all, from men. But that conditioning has been breaking, and it's breaking fast. The woman of today doesn't exist to complete someone. She exists to fulfill her own purpose. The modern woman has evolved from dependence to self-direction, from seeking love to setting standards, and from waiting to acting. This shift didn't happen overnight. It came from decades of quiet frustration, emotional neglect, and societal awakening. Women started realizing that being the good girl didn't guarantee happiness. They followed the rules: be loyal, be soft, be patient, and yet many found themselves disrespected, undervalued, and replaceable. That realization sparked something powerful: self-awareness. They began to understand that kindness without boundaries leads to exploitation, that love without self-respect leads to pain. So now they've chosen differently. They've chosen self-respect over approval, peace over attachment, and purpose over validation. This new mindset has also transformed how women approach dating and relationships. They're not impressed by surface-level charm, empty promises, or inconsistent effort. They value consistency, emotional maturity, and honesty. They've learned that attraction without respect leads to chaos, and chemistry without character leads to heartbreak. They want depth. They want a partner who can match their growth, not someone who drains it. That's why so many men feel confused today. They're using old tactics on evolved women: the emotional manipulation, the push and pull games, the casual disrespect. It doesn't work anymore. She'll walk away faster than you expect because she knows her worth. Another layer of this mindset shift is how women now measure success. For the longest time, success for a woman meant marriage, children, and stability. But now success means freedom, financial, emotional, and mental. It's about being able to make choices without fear. It's about having the courage to leave situations that no longer serve her peace. Modern women are building businesses, pursuing education, and traveling the world alone. Not because they're anti-love, but because they finally realize they're whole on their own. This isn't ego, it's evolution. Social media and exposure to global perspectives have accelerated this awakening. Women see examples of strength, confidence, and leadership everywhere. They watch other women rise, and it inspires them to do the same. They're no longer afraid of being called too much, too independent, or too outspoken. They understand that those labels often come from people who fear empowered women. The shift in mindset is not about rebellion. It's about balance. It's about unlearning everything that taught them to settle, to silence their needs, and to shrink themselves to fit someone else's comfort. What's happening now is not the loss of femininity. It's the rebirth of it. Women are learning that softness doesn't mean weakness, and strength doesn't mean aggression. They can be nurturing without being naive. They can love deeply without losing themselves. They can be empathetic without being exploited. This mindset shift has created a new type of woman, one who is grounded, self-aware, and fearless in protecting her peace. She's not hard, she's healed. She's not cold, she's clear. She's not angry, she's awakened. There was a time when society told men and women exactly who they were supposed to be. Men were the providers, the protectors, the leaders. Women were the nurturers, the caretakers, the ones who stayed quiet and supportive. Every generation was raised with these invisible scripts, that a man's strength came from dominance and a woman's value came from obedience. But that world is disappearing, and it's not coming back. The structure that once defined relationships has crumbled under the weight of awareness, independence, and change. Women are no longer confined to the narrow expectations of what it means to be feminine, and men can no longer rely on traditional power dynamics to feel significant. This transformation began when women started stepping into spaces that were once considered off-limits. Education opened doors, financial independence gave choices, and technology gave voice. Suddenly, women didn't have to stay silent to survive. They could build, lead, and influence. And with every generation, the dependency that once kept women tethered to traditional roles started to weaken. The modern woman doesn't need permission to dream big or move differently. She's not afraid of being labeled too ambitious or too dominant because she's realized that those words are often used to keep her small. The old blueprint of relationships, man earns, woman supports, doesn't hold the same power anymore. Today, women are earning their own money, making their own decisions, and building their own lives. The dynamic has shifted from dependence to partnership. That means she's not impressed by your income. She's interested in your integrity. She doesn't need your protection. She wants your respect. She's not waiting to be led. She's asking to walk beside you. This new energy confuses many men who were raised to believe that leadership means control. But leadership in this new era means alignment. It means a man must bring emotional stability, not dominance, purpose, not possession. This shift has also challenged what it means to be masculine and feminine. Traditional gender roles were rigid. Men couldn't express vulnerability, and women couldn't express authority. Both genders were emotionally restricted, and that imbalance created generations of dysfunction. Now those walls are breaking. Women are embracing their masculine traits, ambition, confidence, logic, without losing their softness. Men too are being called to embrace emotional depth, communication, and empathy without feeling weak. It's not about reversing roles, it's about balancing them. Strength and sensitivity can coexist. Power and peace can walk together. This evolution, however, hasn't been smooth. Many men feel displaced, unsure of how to operate in a world where their traditional position is no longer guaranteed. They feel like the rules changed without warning. The truth is, they did. But the answer isn't resistance, it's growth. The modern man must adapt. He must understand that his value no longer comes from control, but from contribution. The days of being respected simply because you're a man are over. Respect now comes from character, consistency, and emotional maturity. The woman of today doesn't want a provider. She wants a partner, someone who brings purpose, not pressure. This shift has also changed how relationships are built. In the past, stability was defined by routine. The man worked, the woman managed the home. Now, stability comes from understanding, from shared vision, communication, and mutual respect. A man who expects submission is outdated. A man who inspires trust is timeless. The most attractive quality in today's world isn't dominance, it's self-awareness. Women no longer want to be controlled, they want to be understood. And the men who refuse to evolve will find themselves left behind, not because women hate men, but because women outgrew the versions of men who never learned to grow with them. This new dynamic also liberates men in ways they don't always see. It frees them from the pressure of always having to perform, provide, and protect. It allows them to be human, to rest, to feel, to express. The end of traditional gender roles doesn't destroy masculinity. It refines it. It strips away the performance and exposes the truth. Real masculinity isn't about dominance, it's about direction. It's about knowing who you are and what you stand for without needing to suppress or control someone else to feel powerful. The modern woman doesn't want a savior, she wants an equal. And equality isn't a threat to masculinity, it's a test of it. There's a silent transformation happening in women today, a shift that many men are struggling to understand. It's the rise of emotional detachment. The same women who once gave endlessly, forgave repeatedly, and tolerated disrespect in the name of love are no longer doing it. They've learned the hard way that vulnerability without boundaries leads to pain, and now they protect their emotions with precision. This isn't coldness, it's clarity. Women are not less emotional. They're simply more selective about where their emotions go. They're no longer giving their hearts to men who haven't earned their trust, their time, or their energy. This emotional detachment is a result of experience. Women have been through cycles of giving too much, investing in potential, excusing inconsistency, and hoping someone would change. But over time, they realized that effort without reciprocity becomes self-destruction. They discovered that constantly fixing, chasing, or proving themselves only leads to disappointment. That realization is what triggered a massive internal shift. They stopped begging to be understood and started choosing peace. They stopped explaining their worth and started enforcing it. The emotional walls that men now complain about were not built overnight. They were built out of survival. Today's women have trained themselves to control emotional impulses that once ruled their lives. They've learned how to walk away when things no longer serve their growth. They can feel deeply but think logically. They still love, but they love differently. Their love now comes with awareness, not blindness. They don't confuse attachment with affection or attention with effort. When they sense inconsistency, they detach before they get hurt. It's not bitterness, it's emotional intelligence. They've been through enough to know that not everyone deserves access to their heart. Social media has amplified this change even further. Women are exposed to stories of betrayal, manipulation, and false promises every day. They've seen what happens when you love someone more than you love yourself. They've watched other women rebuild after being broken, and that visibility has taught them self-protection. This new generation of women doesn't see emotional detachment as heartlessness. They see it as strength. They're not trying to prove that they can live without men. They're proving that they can live without emotional chaos. They want peace, and peace requires discipline. That discipline shows up as emotional distance, selective communication, and strict boundaries. What most men misunderstand is that emotional detachment isn't the absence of emotion, it's the control of it. When a woman no longer reacts, it's not because she stopped caring, it's because she stopped trying to convince. She's learned that silence is more powerful than explanation. She no longer argues to be heard, pleads to be chosen, or lowers her standards to be accepted. Her detachment is her new form of strength. It's how she protects her energy in a world that constantly tries to drain it. Once a woman learns emotional control, she becomes unshakable, not because she's unfeeling, but because she's finally learned to feel without falling apart. This rise of emotional detachment has also shifted the dating dynamic. Men who are used to attention, validation, and constant reassurance now face women who give none of that without reason. The emotional availability that once came easily now has to be earned. Women are no longer impressed by mixed signals or half effort. If a man is inconsistent, she disappears. If he disrespects her boundaries, she withdraws. She's not waiting for closure. She creates it herself. Her peace matters more than any apology. Her standards matter more than temporary affection. She's no longer afraid to be alone because she's realized that solitude is better than confusion. This emotional shift has made women more powerful in relationships because it forces balance. It holds men accountable for their emotional immaturity and demands genuine effort instead of empty words. A woman's detachment is no longer a sign that she's cold. It's proof that she's healed enough to stop chasing what drains her. The days of overgiving are gone. She's not available for inconsistency, manipulation, or half love. Her emotions are sacred now, and not everyone gets to touch them. Social media has completely reshaped the way women think, feel, and express themselves. It has become both a mirror and a magnifier, reflecting the evolution of female identity while amplifying its complexity. Platforms like Instagram, TikTok, and YouTube are no longer just spaces for entertainment. They are arenas of influence, empowerment, and self-definition. Women today are exposed to global narratives about independence, confidence, and self-worth. They can see in real time examples of strength and success from every corner of the world. But alongside empowerment comes confusion, pressure, and comparison, the double-edged nature of modern influence. For many women, social media has served as a wake-up call. It has shown them that their lives don't have to follow the traditional blueprint. They can see women building careers, traveling alone, starting businesses, and creating identities outside of marriage or motherhood. These visuals have sparked ambition and independence. They've realized that they can design their own lives without waiting for validation or permission. Exposure to global culture has made women question old narratives, the idea that they must be soft, silent, or dependent to be loved. They are redefining femininity, one post at a time. What was once considered rebellious is now celebrated as confidence. However, this constant stream of online content has also changed how women perceive themselves and others. The pressure to look perfect, act strong, and stay relevant can be overwhelming. Every scroll reminds them of someone more beautiful, more successful, more loved. This creates an invisible competition, not for survival, but for validation. Even empowered women sometimes struggle with this duality, wanting to be authentic while feeling the need to perform. Social media celebrates confidence, yet often rewards conformity. It encourages women to love themselves, but subtly tells them they're never enough. This paradox shapes emotional behavior, especially in relationships. Many women appear detached or self-assured online, but behind the screen, they're still navigating insecurities amplified by comparison. The influence of social media has also redefined dating and attraction. Women are now more aware of red flags, manipulation tactics, and emotional games because they see them discussed openly by others. They share experiences, learn from collective wisdom, and recognize patterns faster. This awareness has made them more cautious, more analytical, and less naive. The romantic illusions that once controlled their emotions have faded. They know when they're being played, and they know when to walk away. The access to information has empowered women to demand better, emotionally, mentally, and even spiritually. They've become more selective, not because they're arrogant, but because they're educated by experience and exposure. Yet, social media has also blurred the line between confidence and ego, between empowerment and isolation. Many women now project strength to protect vulnerability. They've learned to use online personas as armor. Polished, perfect, and emotionally untouchable. But behind that armor often lies exhaustion. The expectation to constantly prove strength can drain authenticity. The need to maintain an image can overshadow genuine connection. This is the cost of visibility. Everyone sees you, but not everyone knows you. The modern woman is learning to balance being seen and being real, and that balance isn't easy in a world that thrives on perception. At the same time, social media has given women community, a global sisterhood of shared experience. They find support, advice, and validation from other women who've lived similar stories. They learn to set boundaries, heal from trauma, and build self-worth. The digital world has become a classroom for emotional evolution. It's teaching women that vulnerability isn't weakness, that standards aren't arrogance, and that self-respect isn't hostility. This education is reshaping how women show up in real life, in relationships, careers, and self-expression. They're no longer waiting for permission to evolve. They're using their voices to create their own narratives. But with every post, every video, every story shared online, there's a reminder that authenticity has become the new rebellion. Social media has taught women to stand tall, but it has also taught them to filter reality. It has given them power, but demanded perfection in return. It has opened doors to independence while closing some to intimacy. Women today live in a world where empowerment is celebrated yet constantly tested by visibility. The modern influence of social media has made them sharper, stronger, and more self-aware, but also more guarded, more cautious, and more selective about who they let into their inner world. The world has changed, and so have women. But what many men fail to realize is that this evolution demands their own growth too. The strategies, attitudes, and mindsets that worked decades ago no longer hold any power. The days when a man could rely solely on his status, money, or dominance to earn respect are gone. The modern woman doesn't need to be impressed. She needs to be inspired. She isn't seeking a man to save her. She's seeking a man who can stand beside her. This new era of relationships calls for emotional intelligence, maturity, and purpose, qualities many men were never taught to cultivate because they were too busy being told to suppress emotion and chase success. Men today are being asked to evolve not because women are unreasonable, but because women are awakening. They're learning self-worth, setting boundaries, and expecting emotional reciprocity. This shift means that a man can no longer afford to remain emotionally unavailable, inconsistent, or detached from self-awareness. The masculine role is not disappearing. It's transforming. It's no longer about control. It's about contribution. The measure of a man's strength today isn't how much power he holds, but how much stability he brings into a woman's life. A real man now must lead with clarity, not ego, with integrity, not intimidation. For generations, men were conditioned to believe that providing financially was enough. They were told that if they worked hard, earned money, and protected their families, they had fulfilled their purpose. But that mindset left many men emotionally disconnected and spiritually empty. Women are no longer asking only for providers, they're asking for partners. They want emotional safety, communication, and consistency. The modern relationship requires both people to bring something deeper than financial security, emotional investment. Men who still believe that love can survive without understanding or emotional depth are watching their relationships fall apart because they've failed to grow beyond their traditional programming. Evolution for men begins with self-awareness. It means confronting ego, healing emotional wounds, and learning how to communicate without defensiveness. Too many men hide behind silence, anger, or avoidance because they fear vulnerability. But vulnerability is not weakness. It's emotional strength. It's what builds trust. A man who refuses to look within will keep repeating the same patterns, blaming women for being different, when the truth is, women are simply reflecting his lack of evolution. Emotional maturity is not about being perfect. It's about being present, accountable, and grounded enough to handle challenges without losing composure. The modern man must learn to regulate his emotions, not project them. This growth also requires men to redefine masculinity. Society has fed them a version of manhood built on dominance, aggression, and control. But real masculinity is calm, confident, and disciplined. It doesn't need validation, and it doesn't need to prove superiority. It operates with purpose. When a man is grounded in his mission, he becomes attractive not because of what he owns, but because of who he is. Women today are drawn to men who have direction, men who know where they're going emotionally and spiritually. Leadership in relationships now means leading through example, not demand. It's about creating safety, not submission. Another part of men's evolution is learning emotional communication. Women today are more expressive and self-aware, which means they expect dialogue, not dismissal. A man who shuts down emotionally or avoids difficult conversations loses trust quickly. Women notice when a man can't express himself or process emotion with maturity. They crave connection that's real, not just physical or superficial. Men must learn to listen without defensiveness and speak without hostility. Emotional literacy has become a new form of strength because it shows balance between mind and heart. Men also need to evolve spiritually, not necessarily in religion, but in presence, the ability to stay centered, patient, and conscious in a world full of distraction. Women are more intuitive now. They can sense when a man lacks purpose or direction. They no longer tolerate emotional chaos because they've learned to value peace. A man without purpose becomes unstable. A man with clarity becomes magnetic. The masculine energy is meant to provide structure, but that structure must now include emotional depth, spiritual awareness, and mental discipline. That's the version of masculinity that can stand beside the modern woman without feeling threatened by her independence. Men can no longer afford to stay stagnant while women are evolving. Growth is no longer optional, it's required. The imbalance between emotionally mature women and emotionally underdeveloped men has created a disconnect in modern relationships. The solution isn't to compete with women. It's to meet them at the level of emotional and spiritual awareness they've reached. A man who chooses to evolve no longer fears strong women. He values them because he understands that her strength doesn't challenge his masculinity, it amplifies it. Masculinity has been misunderstood, misused, and misrepresented for decades. For too long, it was defined by dominance, control, and emotional silence. Men were taught to lead through fear instead of respect, to provide without connecting, and to stay strong by suppressing emotion. But that version of masculinity no longer works in the modern world. The rise of strong, self-aware women has forced a redefinition of what it truly means to be masculine. Reclaiming masculine energy today isn't about overpowering others, it's about mastering oneself. It's about returning to strength that is rooted in stability, not aggression, and purpose that is driven by vision, not ego. The true masculine energy is calm, confident, and consistent. It doesn't chase attention, it commands respect through presence. A man who has reclaimed his masculine energy doesn't need to compete, manipulate, or dominate to feel powerful. His strength lies in his ability to stay centered when everything around him is chaotic. He doesn't react impulsively or operate from insecurity. He moves with clarity and intention. Modern masculinity is not about being louder. It's about being grounded. It's the ability to lead with wisdom, protect with love, and pursue with purpose. This is what separates a mature man from a boy who confuses control with power. Reclaiming masculine energy starts with self-discipline. A man who cannot control his impulses, emotions, or habits is not strong, he's unstable. Discipline is what gives masculine energy direction. It's what helps a man stay focused on his mission, build consistency, and create security for himself and those around him. Women are naturally drawn to a man who is disciplined, not because he's perfect, but because he's predictable in his stability. He shows up when he says he will, he keeps his word, and he follows through on his goals. In a world full of distractions, that level of focus has become rare, and that rarity is power. Masculinity is not measured by dominance over others, but by mastery over self. The next layer of masculine energy is emotional maturity. Men were once told that emotions make them weak, but suppression has only created generations of men who are disconnected from their inner world. A man who denies his feelings becomes reactive, defensive, and cold. A man who understands them becomes emotionally intelligent, calm, and balanced. True masculine energy doesn't reject emotion, it channels it. It uses pain as fuel for growth and rejection as redirection. A man who can acknowledge emotion without being ruled by it becomes unshakable. He can hold space for a woman's emotions without feeling attacked because he has learned how to manage his own. Purpose is another core pillar of masculine energy. A man without purpose feels lost, and when he's lost, he becomes needy, anxious, or controlling. Purpose grounds masculinity. It gives a man direction beyond validation or pleasure. When a man has a mission, he no longer looks for approval. He looks for alignment. Women are instinctively drawn to men who have direction because purpose radiates confidence. It shows that a man is not drifting aimlessly, but moving intentionally. That kind of energy is magnetic, not because it's dominant, but because it's decisive. Purpose-driven men don't need to prove themselves. They express their strength through consistency and focus. Reclaiming masculine energy also means restoring balance in relationships. In a world where many men feel emasculated by women's independence, the solution isn't to compete. It's to complement. Masculine energy thrives when it meets feminine energy in balance, not opposition. When a man stands in his power with confidence, a woman naturally softens into her femininity. Her independence doesn't threaten him, it inspires him. Her strength doesn't challenge his masculinity, it awakens it. The dynamic between masculine and feminine energies was never meant to be a battle. It was meant to be harmony. But harmony only happens when both energies are expressed authentically, without ego or fear. Reclaiming masculinity also requires a man to protect his peace and energy. Modern society constantly tries to weaken men through distraction, addiction, and emotional chaos. Reclaiming power means saying no to things that drain it, meaningless relationships, constant validation seeking, or living without direction. It means choosing purpose over pleasure, growth over comfort, and truth over approval. Masculine energy flourishes when a man aligns with discipline, integrity, and clarity. He no longer seeks to be desired by everyone, he seeks to be respected by himself. That's the quiet confidence that makes masculine energy magnetic again. This version of masculinity isn't fragile, it's evolved. It's not about controlling the world around you, it's about mastering the world within you. It's knowing when to stand firm and when to stay calm, when to protect and when to listen, when to lead and when to trust. The modern man who reclaims his masculine energy doesn't chase validation from women, society, or status. He creates stability, direction, and peace wherever he goes because he carries it within himself.